choose to love where freedom flies from my heart, where the light keeps shining. And I choose to feel the whole world crying for the strength that we can rise above. I choose love.
Hi, I'm Larry Reynolds from Grace Healing at gracehealing.org, and I want to share something that's important for each of us to consider, and it's the importance of journaling the things and moments in your life where you touch upon the presence of God. And there's times, and I know everybody experiences this, and I've experienced this over this past few days, where it's challenging dealing with the process of serving others and meeting so many people in their need. And then there's times where it can become overwhelming. And being able to draw to the remembrance of what God showed you or the experiences you encountered are extremely important to encourage you and carry you through those moments. We can seek God in every moment, but there are times we as humans need a clear and definitive reminder to know in detail the things that transpired. And one of the ones that I want to share with you is the one that just completely to this day just blows my mind of the awesome wonder of God. And it's the throne room of God. It's the temple of light, could be a way to describe it. But a number of years ago, we were blessed to enter prayer for the sake of the orphanage that we serve. And we have 52 children that we had served for a number of years, about 15 years, and about 3 of them we were sole providers to. And in that time, we were getting calls saying that the children were going hungry and they were down to 1 meal a day. And what they would do is break up that meal to give it to them at different times to the day. And then they would usually have to rock the children until they would go to sleep to get them through the hunger pains and discomfort. So we committed that we would engage in prayer for them. And honestly, having no clue of what God could do with it, we just chose to set up the conference call, do the normal prayer conference call that we did at that time for Grace Healing, and many people that joined us. And then at the end of the call, I just invited people to remain if they so desired to do so. There were about 27 people on the phone call. I think it was actually 27 people on the phone call. And when I invited people to either stay or get off after the meditation of that evening, all 27 stayed for the sake of the children and the opportunity to engage in prayer. And as I began to pray, God brought a prayer through me and this beautiful message. But the fascinating thing was that the vision I was seeing as the prayer unfolded in Aramaic was what 7 other people on the phone had seen and reported back later, that they were witnessing the same images that I was seeing as the prayer was coming through me in Aramaic. So I want to share that with you. And in this prayer, we were raising up the care for these children and the hope for them to be blessed and to bless John and his wife Esther, who care for the home. And they were led a number of years to go out and collect children. And they ended up collecting, at that time, 48. They eventually expanded to 52 children. And as we entered into prayer, I had this awareness of seeing us drawn as a group to this place that was a temple of light. And it was glorious in view. I mean, it was absolutely gorgeous. But the fascinating thing about it was it had solidity and form to it, but it was formed of light. And then there were very simple doors, massive doors in the front of it. And as the doors opened, it was Yeshua standing there opening the doors. And we were at the lower part of what you would describe as the stairs to ascend. And as Yeshua greeted us, we just ascended up the stairs. We didn't walk up the stairs. We actually ascended up the stairs and landed in front of Yeshua and then entered upon the temple of light. But the fascinating thing, the beautiful thing about this was, As you entered into the temple of light, you could call it the throne room, but I see it more as the temple of light, the literal presence of God. As we entered into this building, this room, the light was in form, viscous in nature, and you had a sense of feeling yourself walking through this light that you could feel pressed around your body, moving through as if you were walking through water. And it was just absolutely beautiful. And as you looked around, you saw pillars of light supporting the whole. They looked like pillars with Corinthian caps and stuff, but they were formed of light, and they supported all aspects of the structure that was this temple of light. And then looking to the center of the temple, there was a brilliance, a light so pure, so perfect, so indiscernible. It was beyond reason. It was just amazing and warm and inviting and sense of knowledge and understanding. And what I understood that to be was actually God's presence. And you could not see God's presence. You could only see, feel, recognize, and know the light that was, again, surrounding you and viscous in nature through movement. And then Yeshua stepped before the light, between us and the light, and then you saw the presence of God through Yeshua's form. It actually manifested through Yeshua's form, and you could see and know of the presence of God defined. In other words, revealed by Yeshua's presence. Absolutely beautiful. And in this moment, I felt within my heart that in the prayer, as it was coming forth in Aramaic, was to invite John and his wife Esther into the temple. And as I did that, I had this sense or awareness that the temple of light was the place to invite them to. And in the vision, I looked to my left, and John and Esther came into this temple. Now, in India, they didn't know that we were doing this prayer. They knew that we were going to pray for them, but they did not know we were doing this meditation. And that just needs to lay the foundation for what eventually comes here. And as they came into this vision, Yeshua greeted both of them and took them to the side and ministered to them and just blessed them and ministered to them. And then all of a sudden I see out of the corner of my eye within the vision, the 52 children come in, higgledy-piggledy, flop on the floor and just sit down. And this was beautiful, and just in the prayer, it was comforting because, we knew that the kids were going through this suffrage with food and lack of food and going into hunger and out of hunger. So to be in this place where we were actually seeing these beautiful children leap and abound. And then we also had a number of other women that we served that were widows in that village as well. And they came walking in a straight line. Eyes rested on the back of the head of the one in front of them, and then the one in the front of the line had their eyes cast toward the ground, and they walked in just straight line and then just sat down. And this was as the vision was unfolding. And then I began to realize that you could see vortices form in this viscous form of light that surrounded us. That as we moved, you could feel, as your arm would move through the light, you could feel the viscous nature of that light. But then you would see these vortices form up in the light and then take form and become a living being. And this living being would swoop down and place its hand into the belly of one of the children, or a series of the children, or both hands. And this light form, you could describe this as angelic, becoming one of God's presence, manifested of the living light of God's presence, taking form, descending into the children and entering upon their bellies. And then there were a couple that kind of emerged out of this liquid, this form of light, this viscous form of light, and they went and just ministered over the individual widows. And this was it was fascinating to watch this unfold, and the living life and the Avun, the breath of God's Spirit moving through. And as God's Spirit, his breath would blow or move this vortice, it would actually take form and become a living being. Not as we describe it, like from a human perspective, with an angel, a physical form and wings and all this. It was a being of light. And this beautiful, beautiful experience of watching them swoop down, the children smiling from ear to ear, just overjoyed with this. And this is not really just the fascinating part, because it gets more incredible. As this unfolded, it was becoming more and more beautiful, and the children were becoming more and more joyful, and we were just so grateful, and we closed out the prayer, and it was absolutely remarkable. And all the people left the call, and again, 7 people reached out afterwards that actually described exactly what I was seeing and conveying through the prayer in Aramaic. And they were describing this vision and how beautiful and how glorious it was. So all that being said, the next morning, and I won't get into all the things that came about on the earthly plane, because there were some beautiful things that came out of a grant with that financially, and we were able to get them out of tents and into a main home. But what happens is the next morning, I get a call from India, and John is on the phone and in tears of joy, and sharing that the children were in, and I could hear the children in the background being joyful and thankful, and they had come down in the morning overjoyed and thanking God for the gifts of the prayers that we had shared for them, because they knew by the prayers that their bellies were full. And you have to keep that in mind. We were clueless. We were just doing this prayer, and I was in awe of what I was witnessing in this vision. To see this manifest in this beautiful way, and to recognize the power and presence of God, and then to see the presence of God manifested through Yeshua's form, and then this beautiful expression of the beings of light forming out of the viscous nature of God's presence, swooping down and feeding these beautiful children. Well, the children are so thankful and overjoyed the next morning, and their bellies are full, and they're skipping about, and John is on the phone in tears of joy and thankfulness, and his wife Esther is in tears in the background, and we're just like in awe of what's happening. And I'm in awe, and I'm getting information sent in from people the next morning, and we filled out a grant application and ended up receiving a grant, and then we were actually funded in the grant, and within 3 days of this whole process, we actually had the funds in hand and delivered to those in need in India. So to clarify this, and this is where the awesome wonder comes in this, is we went into this not knowing anything, both myself and the rest of us within Grace Healing. We just know that we were going to pray. And then God blessed us with a moment of recognition of his spirit, his nature, his awesome wonder and beauty. And then through Yeshua's presence before us, we are able to see, know, and recognize God. And then be in awe and wonder of how God does reach forth and pour manna from the heavens, sustaining grace into those in need as we come together in the fullness of agreement. So we had 27 people on that phone at that night, plus myself, 28, that were in full agreement before the love of God's presence, to see these children freed from the pain and suffrage that they were experiencing through the hunger. And that, again, manifested their bellies full for that 3-day period until we had the actual monies from the grants in our hand by that following Saturday and delivered to them, which they were able to buy rice for the widows and also a number of months of rice for the children and food, and also move from the tents into the main home, which actually had a pump for water in the courtyard. So I say this once again, please be encouraged in the nature of God's presence. And when you find those places of difficulty within your life, or those times where you're responding to the needs of others, and you really need to review and remember, like place a stake in the ground, stand in awe of how amazing God is, and remember that even if you are formed or experiencing any sense of distress, that God is present with you, and that distress must manifest for the sake of revealing all things with a spiritual nature within it and to bring healing to it. It's not to subject you to suffering. It's to bring the suffering to the surface so that it can be healed and renewed. And that's what we share within Grace Healing. And I do pray that you can find blessing within this message in some way, and comfort in knowing that the living presence of God is not limited to a temple. Because as we were drawn back in the vision to the completion of this vision, it was revealed that the very temple is us. We are the living temple that holds the presence of God within, and that God's presence, holy being, living light, is manifest from within us if we can surrender our attachment to this physical form and witness the fullness of grace in every breath we receive. So I pray you can be blessed in the fact that I know that this was a little bit longer than usual, but I felt it was important to share the details surrounding this vision and the awesome wonder of our God. So I pray in thanksgiving that Yahweh, our God, Yeshua, the very manifestation of his form, and the Abun would guide you through your day. The living breath of God's Spirit would move you through this day to find blessing in every breath you receive. We love you dearly here at Grace Healing, and we are here if you wish to reach, and look forward to hearing from you. Take care and be blessed.
Yeah.